Slave rebellions in America. During the 19th century, slavery was a very contentious topic in the southern slave states and the northern free states. Black slaves began resisting to slavery through numerous acts of violence against the white slave owners and even their families. These came to be known as the slave rebellions that would later be significant to the abolitionism of slavery. So why slaves revolted? There are several obvious reasons why slaves finally revolted. For 2.5 centuries, black slaves were treated like brutes and animals rather than human beings. They were often whipped or beaten if they were not obedient to their master or simply to deter them from slacking. The white slave owners did not care for them in any way. They were simply exploited for the work that they provided in the cotton fields and other southern plantations. Not only did they face inhumane torture, the slaves were also raped and sold away from their families. They couldn't stand to continue living in the way they did. A significant and bloody rebellion during the 18th century was the 1739 Stono Rebellion that took place at the Stono River Bridge in South Carolina. On September 9, 1739, 20 slaves were brought together by a man named Jemmy. Many of these slaves were captured and sold as soldiers in the Yamasee War or warfare back home in Angola, so they were already trained in the use of weapons. Gathering at Stono River, they raided a store and executed the white owners by putting their heads on the front steps for everyone to see. They went around to houses in the area, slaughtered the occupants, and set their homes to fire, all while making their way to St. Augustine, Florida, where they would be considered free under the Spanish law. At this point, there were about 100 slaves joining the insurrection with banners saying liberty in their native language. English colonists eventually rounded up and killed most of the rebels, but this didn't stop violent outbreaks from occurring. The following year, another 50 rebel slaves were executed. Another important revolt was Nat Turner's rebellion. Turner, an African-American preacher, would come to be notable for having one of the most terrifying revolts against the white slaveholders that were initiated by his religious visions. They vowed to kill every white person they saw, including women and children. On the morning of August 22, 1831, Turner and several other slaves murdered his master and his family. Following this, he gathered a group of 60 slaves to face off the whites, and similarly to Stono Rebellion, they went home to home murdering the white occupants. Over the 2 days of this revolt, he now had about 75 slaves supporting his rebellion, and in the aftermath, they had killed somewhere around 60 white men, women, and children. Were the consequences worth the troubles, though? In addition to calling state militia to take control of the situation, the whites responded by capturing and executing 18 slaves, including Turner himself. His body was then skinned, while his remains were rendered into grease by the enraged whites. Through Turner's and many others' sacrifices, this revolt would later encourage more black men to fight for their freedom in the Civil War. Okay, bye.